Hello, I'm Brooke Moen of Brooke Moen Acupuncture and Personalized Medicine. I practice ancient medicine in a modern context, which essentially consists of acupuncture and herbal prescription in the Chinese medicine tradition. I both treat in person and I do telehealth consultations. And if you want to know more about my work, you can go to brookemoenacupuncture, all one word.com. And today I'm doing this video because I want to talk a little bit about self-care, the concept of self-care. This is a concept that gets easily overblown, I think, with a sort of new age pressure to take good care of ourselves, and in the context of pedicures and bubble baths can be a very privileged white sort of thing. So I kind of want to bust through that today and talk about how, we're in really intense times in the world for everyone. And right now in the Chinese calendar, we are in a time called Fire into Earth. And so this is a great time to talk about what actually is self-care. How does it serve all of us? What is it if it isn't bubble baths and pedicures? Or what is it additionally? And why do we care? How does it help others, not just ourselves? And so I'll start by talking about that, and I'll talk a little bit more about where we find ourselves in the Chinese calendar and how that relates to the choices we make. And then I'll just make a few suggestions about, in this time, what can be some great ways to keep an eye to self-care while we're trying our best to care for our loved ones and care for the world. So back to this idea that self-care is this privileged thing. It absolutely is. It's in a lot of ways, we're in times that are unprecedented for having the time and resources, and particularly for those of us with privilege, to make choices that surround choosing ourselves. And in an ancient Taoist or Buddhist or Confucian framework, this would on its surface sound really absurd. In fact, in a lot of those cultures still today, there isn't even any such thing as the individual. You are your mother's son, you are your sister's brother, and that's the most important part. But in a modern context where we can take that further is to say yes, and to show up and be the very best I can be as the cog in the whole wheel that I am. It would be good to first make sure that my feet are really on the ground and I am feeling strong and healthy so that I can take care of other people. That classic metaphor of putting the oxygen mask on someone else before you put it on yourself. That's a great image to think about. And so right now we really want to think in terms of, well, how can I use my privilege to actually serve others? And once again, to make sure my own feet are on the ground, that I am well resourced, and then I have so much more to give others, I think is a good way to think about this concept of self-care. We just came out of 3 intense moons, is what we call it in the Chinese cosmology view. And that's basically 3 months, 3 lunar months. The pandemic started in about around the metal dragon month. And then we had 2 metal snake months, which is a little bit unusual. And so what does that mean? That just means there was a lot of intensity, basically. There was a lot of big overblown intensity, and then deep searching inside intensity. We all had to come deeply within our houses, within our families, within ourselves. And that kind of soul searching while you're, in a lot of ways trapped is not an easy thing. And then we came into the horse month last month, which is the yang of fire, which is about now you're busting out and you get to have forward motion and you want to get out and do things. But in a rat year, a rat is opposite of that energy. A rat is saying, wait. First, we need to nail down the details. And so perhaps last month you felt a little bit of this confusion about running forward, holding back. And so now, just a few days ago, we transitioned into the goat month. And hopefully some have found some relief because the goat brings in this element of earth. We're moving from fire to earth. And without having much time to go too far into it in this video, what that essentially means, we're talking about the movement of things, in a way, thermodynamics. Fire is like saying a lot of movement. And then earth is like saying, now things are starting to settle. We're entering the harvest phase, the middle of life, the end of the summer. And this is harvest time. So a great time to think about, how will we cultivate abundance for all of us? A great example of this is that, we planted our little raised bed garden and suddenly we have more lettuce than we can ever eat, which is a great problem to have. But had we not, back to the self-care concept, had we not really tended to our own health and then the health of the land near our home and the garden itself, we couldn't grow a bunch of lettuce to give to our neighbors and friends. And so, back to the goat idea, goat gives meaning and context to this rat energy of the year that's kind of a ruthless determination to strip everything down and really hold us to what are our goals and what is our purpose. I talk a lot about this in my Year of the Rat video. If you're interested in downloading that, just send me an email or go to my website and you can see how to do that. But essentially, this metal rat year is about sowing seeds of purpose, starting a new cycle. And so during this goat month, we're saying, well, that's important, but we want to bring in the bigger picture of why are we doing that? And the answer is connection, relation. We're doing it for justice for all so that we can all thrive. And so self-care is what really fortifies us to be able to do this. Again, the simple concept that we can't be there for others if we're not first making sure our own health and healing and happiness is attended to. And so what are some simple ways that we can keep an eye on self-care while we sow the seeds of abundance during the next month or the next few weeks, this goat month? I think so much about, again, this earth element. Where do we find earth element? We find it in rhythm and regularity. And a simple way to think about this is your meals and your sleep. It's really easy during the pandemic to have our schedules get completely off. And then in the summertime, it's easy for things to get off. These long, light days, and you're just outside a lot, and the kids aren't in school, and so it's easy to get off of a schedule. And there's actually a little more bandwidth to do that. So it's okay to do that. But now we're at the sixth moon. We're halfway through the year, and we're starting to look toward pulling in. We don't like to think about that in Vermont because the light in the summer is so short, but this is the reality of the cycle, that now the days are starting to shorten. And so we want to start getting back on track with eating at regular times, going to bed and getting up at regular times. That can really resource you and nourish you in ways that seem small, but these small little drops in the bucket over time really make you a lot stronger. And then another way to think about earth is just the sharing of abundance. And again, this idea of trading what's in the garden. We've been doing that with our neighbors and friends and sort of, I grew this and we have too much of that. And that's such a lucky thing. And it's okay if you don't have access or don't want to do that kind of thing. Then it's thinking about, well, what kind of resources do I have to share? And all of us have something. And again, the earth element, it's really important that you're not thinking about overstretching yourself or giving what you don't have, but everybody has something to offer. It can be really as simple as calling someone you haven't talked to in a long time and saying, wow, weird times in the world. I really miss you. Like, can we chat for a little bit? And then the last thing I think about when I think about earth element is really cultivating true empathy. And boy, do we need this now more than ever. And if you're curious about this word empathy, it's really good to ask, well, what exactly is that? And what does it mean? And how do I cultivate it? Brene Brown is an author who has some great stuff on empathy. She has a really nice little video that kind of shows the difference between sympathy and empathy. And I think a lot of my teacher Ming talking about how compassion is not something to do. It's actually our true nature. It's what arises when we are just being our most human selves. That's a powerful concept in the world today when we see a lot of cruelty and a lot of lack of compassion. And I like to always remember that it is indeed our true nature. And so if it's not immediately available, and that's okay. A lot of days are very cranky and very full of judgment, and that's all a human experience too. And you might notice when you are well slept and well fed and well loved and you kind of have the basic things you need, it does come pretty easily to be compassionate. And that can be a tiny little simple thing. So I would encourage thinking about it in that way, not about grand gestures, but tiny little ways of appreciating others and trying to imagine what it's like to walk in someone else's shoes. Even if it's not immediately available, the effort to do so is a powerful movement in today's world. And so those are kind of my suggestions for this earth time is rhythm and regularity, sharing any kind of abundance you might have, and cultivating empathy and compassion. And along those lines, of course, wearing our masks, being safe, being respectful of the collective and our collective health and safety. That's the best way you can cultivate care for all and work toward everyone being a little bit better and a little bit happier and healthier in their life, which just makes a better world for all of us. So if you've enjoyed this video, I'd love to hear from you. If you have any other topics you'd love to hear about, don't hesitate to reach out. BrookeMoen@gmail.com and BrookeMoenAcupuncture.com is my website. Thank you for tuning in and take good care of yourself.